Hello and welcome to BIA's Local Insights podcast, where we examine the trends, technologies, and industry activities related to the revenue facet of local media. I'm Rick Ducey, Managing Director at BIA Advisory Services. Today, we're going to be talking about deeper trends in out-of-home advertising with Jim Wilson. Jim's CEO of Talon America. Talon is an independent out-of-home media agency that plans, buys, and executes campaigns using outcome-based measurements for agencies and brands. BIA estimates that the out-of-home media will reach $7.6 billion in spending by the end of this year, 2022, which is 4.6 of the overall 167.4 billion spent in media targeting local audiences. And we see that growing nicely next year to about $8 billion or so in 2023. Now, the out-of-home media segment is familiar to us, both in terms of those static billboards we see on the sides of highways, but there's actually a lot of new dynamic growth in this space on the digital side, and DOOH, or digital out-of-home. There's a number of different things going on there we'll learn about in our discussion with Jim. This is a fast evolving space, and Jim, you're going to help us understand it better. So Jim, welcome today. Tell us a bit about yourself, and so you've got a background in traditional media and then digital media, and now you're leading the charge in this really kind of significant spending space and technology infused space of out of home and digital out of home. So tell us a bit about yourself and your journey and how you got to where you are and what's exciting.
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, you've impressed me with the statistics of the industry. I'm always amazed at the size of the industry and the rapid transition of out of home to digital and the growth of programmatic, which is a really exciting place to be. Some people think of out of home as this traditional legacy format. I see it as the next frontier of advertising, and I'm at Talon now. I came to Talon just before the pandemic. I was in connected television before that. I'd started Premion, which is a connected television ad tech platform. Very exciting time in connected television, starting in 2016. It was a fragmented market. Premion was all about pulling together fragmentation and offering connected television capabilities to local advertisers. And that quickly ballooned to regional and national advertisers, and it's still a market leader today. So why would I leave that? And perfect timing, right? I mean, I joined here in February of 2020, right. But everything happens for a reason, and we're always put in the right place at the right time. And joining out of home in Talon in February of 2020, right before the pandemic, was an incredibly interesting opportunity, and frankly, a great learning opportunity for me and my team, and frankly, a great growth experience for the team, which I'll get into. But just back to it, I'm excited to be in this space. I'd been in this space before. I was introduced into the space when I took the role at TouchTunes to be a part of a turnaround and growth story for TouchTunes, which was an out-of-home music jukebox company.
Right.
And I took that job because I had convinced myself that I was leaving 15 years of video game development experience, where I developed massively multiplayer online games, mobile games, for brands like Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and other sort of, Test Drive Unlimited, a whole bunch of brands. I was the CEO of Atari. I started a games business at Universal Studios. So I spent a lot of time in games. And frankly, I find myself, although I have a CEO title, I find myself in my heart, I'm a product and marketing person. I loved consumer experiences. And even in the B2B space and in the advertising space, I'm always focused on effectiveness to consumers, and that's really important to me. But when I took the role at TouchTunes, I took it because I thought I was running a massively multiplayer online music platform, and what I realized very quickly was I was running an out-of-home business, where I could
Interesting.
affect behaviors through screens in venues. And I fell in love with the opportunity. We launched a mobile app. We put beacons in venues. We were motivating behaviors inside of 60,000 bars and restaurants. And why did I come back to out of home? Even though I had a wonderful experience at Premion, I came back to out of home because out of home has so much possibility, and the opportunity to work on traditional formats where there's so much opportunity and on digital formats is really exciting. And I think we're really at the beginning of a renaissance of out of home, and really we're going to see out of home become a much more effective medium going forward.
It's all the things you're saying are so compelling and so interesting. And as I mentioned in our pre-discussion, it was interesting to see Anna Barger join to lead Advertising Association of America from the IAB Tech Lab. I mean, so you're extremely digital, and she's obviously very digital. So it's like, okay, there's something happening here. Things are waking up. This whole space is changing. So Anna gave us some really great insights, and looking forward to seeing what it is you're seeing in this next emerging platform. So I start off by saying when people think of out of home, a lot of times they think of those billboards they see along the highway. But we're talking more about the digital kind of assets and place-based advertising and how that's growing fast as part of the out-of-home category. With BIA, we call it the DOOH, and others do in the industry, the digital out-of-home. So what is that? What is the digital side of out-of-home that's so interesting to you?
Sure. Let me just say one thing about traditional before I jump into digital. It's still a very large part of the industry, and it is an extremely effective reach platform. When you're driving down a highway and you see a Cracker Barrel billboard that basically is a directional billboard that takes you to a Cracker Barrel, and Cracker Barrel is one of our clients. And those billboards are not only, those traditional formats are not only extremely effective in driving traffic. And we have through our ADA platform, our data management platform, we've scored every piece of inventory in the country so that we know which audiences, which directions, and when we onboard new clients, we evaluate all of their billboards in the traditional format through our audience scoring to make sure that they are using the most effective billboards for their business. And so there really is a lot more to those traditional billboards. They are now, in today's world, actually data-driven, and they're audience-driven. And last thing I'll say about them, having sort of a bit of a creative vein in my body, is that they are canvases. They are beautiful canvases for very effective advertisements. I drive my family crazy when we're driving through down the road, and I drive them crazy at home too, because I seem to evaluate every commercial that we ever see, and then I basically I score every billboard when I'm driving, but I've been doing that my whole life. But I just want to say those traditional formats are incredibly effective, and we're really proud of the work that we do there. Digital is, the digital formats are really becoming increasingly prevalent as well, just because of obviously the opportunity to infuse a more real-time approach toward advertising out of home, and also to implement not just static digital, but video. And I come from the world of video, and video is incredibly effective. And so, and I think that other formats have now taught us that sound on video isn't as important as it used to be, and therefore the video format is also a big part of what the digital out-of-home landscape is. And so, and it's all formats, and it's increasingly digital out-of-home is almost everywhere you go. And so the opportunity for out-of-home is to deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. And that's really what we're focusing on. We're focusing on being effective in our creative and being effective in our targeting, and to be able to be nimble with digital. Programmatic obviously creates an opportunity to be more nimble, but it's it's an opportunity for digital out of home to then also, through data sets, to tie back to omni-channel planning, because we believe that we believe in customer journeys, and we believe that digital out of home has an opportunity to become part of a cross-media mix more effectively than it has before.
Wow. I mean, all of that is so powerful and kind of enlightening. I mean, this is a category that's probably, well, I think it probably is underappreciated, and it's just becoming more sparkling. People paid attention maybe during the pandemic. It's like, oh, this media category must be getting crushed, and it did get impacted a little bit. We'll come back to that a bit, but it's like kind of roaring back too. So just now you touched on several topics I want to dig into a bit more. Categories like restaurants, Cracker Barrel, programmatic, measurement, and cross-platform. Let's pick up first with business verticals. So the Cracker Barrel ads, the car ads, the healthcare ads. I mean, those are verticals that, just from my personal experience, it's like you drive down and you see those billboards, and and maybe bank ads. I mean, what business verticals are most attracted to this medium of outdoor?
Yeah, I mean, you've said some of them: restaurants, QSR. I think beverages, spirits, entertainment, healthcare, technology. Increasingly, a lot of direct consumer brands start off in the out-of-home environment because they're looking to get reach, even though they live online. Many of them are using the out-of-home and very targeted out-of-home to create reach and frequency. So you have a whole bunch of traditional categories and healthcare, I think I mentioned, but that are growing in this category. But yeah, it's broadly used, and we're out there educating other categories for out of home as well.
Yeah, the reach is something you've been emphasizing, and that is very meaningful. And even in a category like direct to consumer, where as those brands, digital only brands, internet only brands, started to evolve, they started to see their market opportunities kind of be eclipsed. It's like, we've reached everybody we can with digital channels, and our addressable market's actually bigger, but how do we get to them? Then they started going to some traditional media platforms and starting to say, okay, there's more to the world than we thought. And Out-of-Door, with the reach it brings, was really helpful for that direct to consumer category, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I ran a connected television business, and the metrics were impressions delivered, what reach was, at what frequency, and what was the viewability. And if you think about that in the out-of-home world, there is significant reach because there's so many different formats. It is an unmissable advertising format in terms of viewability. And then I just think about, there's so much emphasis on reaching consumers in home, and yet we spend probably 70% of our lives out of home. And
right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
and we're on these customer journeys every day that we leave our homes. I think that we're on a customer journey. So if we are targeted, if we are, and if the placement is correct for the brand, then we are leading customers on what I hope is, a frictionless and easy customer journey. And I think that's, as an advertiser and a marketer, I sort of have translated the world into customer journeys, I guess.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, and it's, from an agency's perspective, working with your media agency, working with your clients, it's perfect. I mean, like a CMO has so many opportunities to touch consumers in their journey. And what you're talking about are significant touch points in that consumer journey. I want to, you talked about measurement and how this medium is data driven, and there's a lot of data that can get collected and analytics, and that can inform the campaign and the creative. So if I'm driving on a highway and I go by a billboard, how do you know I saw it? What is the measurement capability these days?
Yeah, so again, through Ada, our platform, we've sort of scored every billboard in terms of what audiences are there. We use location insights, audience insights, behavioral insights through various data partners that go into our Ada platform that then create sort of a profile of every board out there, whether it's a digital board or a traditional board. And so we're able to, and I'll just give you an example. We have a national steakhouse partner that was looking to out of home to, they had not been spending a lot of time spending out of home. We set up a campaign and we selected boards around their location. Again, we picked boards based upon the audiences that they were looking for, using location insights, audience insights, behavior insights. When we think about boards, we think about viewability and opportunity to see. So if I was showing you an image, you would see a narrow cone that, and I think, I know Anna talks about it as well, but, there's this opportunity to see. And so we look at that. And, when we ran that campaign, we saw I think they saw almost a 300% lift in restaurant visits.
Nice. Wow.
In that campaign. So, it's really important. We do a lot of, what's interesting is I think many advertisers don't realize that we know how to reach audiences. We know how to measure lift. We can measure footfall, website traffic. We work with, one of the global domain companies. And they have a lot of different businesses, and they're known for global domains, but they have other businesses. And we've been running campaigns for them as well. And we measure traffic. I'm driving to pick my son up from school. I see one of the digital billboards along the Henry Hudson, and that billboard is being measured and being targeted, and we're able to track website visits as a result of it.
So there, I get, like, for a Cracker Barrel, you put signs up around where that restaurant is. So kind of physical location makes sense. Exit 9, come visit us for breakfast, and here's a breakfast special. But how do you, how do you know who's in the cars driving by, or who's walking down the street and sees the signs? How do you know how to target beyond just physical location of signs?
Yeah, again, it's from location insights. It's from, I think, either
like
mobile data or other types of insights that come from our data partners. Again, all of that is crunched through algorithms into our Ada DMP. So we have this very unique DMP that takes location, audience, behavioral, and crunches it in and creates scores on, again, either digital or traditional signs.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to understand kind of at a deeper level how it all works. I mean, that's pretty state of the art and really powerful. Totally get that. From the, so this is a kind of media agency in this space, programmatic trading. You talked a little bit about that. So, at one point there are all these billboards, I guess the assets, if you will, the actual signage, maybe it's a relative concentrated industry to some extent, but how do you transact? I mean, if you work with a client, a QSR or a bank or a healthcare, how do you know what inventory is available, and how do you make the deal to place the content in that inventory? How does kind of it work?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the industry, for the most part, they're planning plus. So just there's sort of forward buying, and then there's programmatic buying, right? There's forward buying with our planning platforms that have every piece of inventory in there. And then basically, as we put together plans, whether we're putting digital plans together with traditional plans, we are working with the media owners through our planning platforms directly to understand what's available. So if we're planning right now a campaign for the first quarter of 2023, then we're forward buying and securing those billboards or those bus shelters or the screens inside of a gym. Programmatic is really fascinating because obviously it's a growth opportunity for this industry. It's only a small percentage of the business, and if you think about programmatic trading and digital overall, it's the majority of the business and other digital platforms. So as we increasingly digitize our industry, programmatic, and we've seen a massive shift in programmatic this year alone. We've seen such growth in programmatic. And there are so many different use cases for programmatic. There, many brands are digital brands and therefore used to trading programmatically. So bringing them into our category, whether they are direct to consumer or some other digital brand, they are more comfortable to come into the industry through a programmatic buy. Some other brands will want to test out the industry and they do it through programmatic. We had one of our financial clients this year that has traditionally spent on static boards do their entire campaign, not just digitally, but they did it programmatically. And it was important to them. They wanted a little more flexibility in their messaging. The markets are very volatile this year, and so on programmatic, you have not only the ability to dynamically trade out, you also have the ability to shift inventory around much more, to be more nimble as you do it, and to pivot when you need to. So programmatic is really increasing, and I think more brands are coming into the category because of it.
And programmatic, so that's real-time bidding for inventory, but you can also do some of the forward buying on programmatic platforms. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And then the one other thing I want to touch on was cross-platform. So you've been speaking the virtues and the benefits of out-of-home and the different ways of accessing it programmatically, forward buying, the different kinds of assets and opportunities you have on the digital side and the traditional side. Great reach, great value for the money. You can show the ROI. There's much more of an emphasis towards doing in that consumer journey cross-platform. So there are multiple touch points. I saw one study in the auto space where the research showed, I think there were 21 marketing touch points along the journey to purchase, search, magazines, maybe TV ads, some digital channels, social, and so on. So, if you're in the business of selling cars, there's 21 times, on average in the study that marketers have a chance to impact the consumer journey. So out of home, both traditional and digital carry a lot of water in that consumer journey value proposition. How does it interact with other elements of a cross-platform campaign?
Well, it's increasingly so. It has been. I think, it's interesting, right? So on the one hand, we are a out-of-home specialist sort of services and solutions company, and historically out-of-home, frankly, has not gotten its fair share of spending. It's 4 or 5% of spending, and I think largely because it's been a fragmented market, and we at Talon and others are solving for that fragmentation. But I think the bigger, and that helps in terms of organizing the industry and making it more accessible for brands. But really the bigger opportunity or what the bigger driver, I would say, is data. If we can connect our data segments and utilize the same segments that are like, we work with LiveRamp. And so if we're working with the same audience segments as connected television or other online video or mobile display, if we're using the same audiences and we can connect those audiences through our platforms into, when we begin working with agencies, partners, they have their own data teams, and we take our data teams and put the data teams together, so that by connecting the data segments, we're able to create more of a connection between out of home. Again, it's still this fragmented business that's coming together, but at least we can plug it into an omnichannel strategy, and that's happening now. So I feel like this is the exciting part of this industry, is that we are plugging the digital out-of-home space into the digital ecosystem of buying. And by doing that, we're able to increase the touch points that you talked about and really focus on creating customer journeys. The advertising to the customer doesn't end in the home, it goes out of home. And if we can connect that out of home, and we are connecting that out of home advertising experience to the in-home advertising experience, then we feel like, and we have case studies that we'll work on that show that we can close the loop and create more effective consumer experience, added reach, frequency, et cetera.
So the out-of-home thing obviously is critical to this as the pandemic is easing up. People are coming more out of home, back to work, shopping, restaurants, venues, things like that, sporting events. So it's great. I mean, so the more people are coming back out of the holes that they crawl into for a while. Promising for out-of-home media. And then now we're dealing with wars and economy, recessions, things like that. It's like this kind of volatile stew we're dealing with. But there's a lot of promising signs, I think, of what's ahead. What for out of home? What do you think 2023 looks like? More technology trends, more data trends, more activations, and more touch points for marketers in that out-of-home part of the consumer journey. I mean, it all adds up to potentially a really promising outlook.
We do. I think we do have a promising outlook for 2023. We do live in an uncertain world at the moment. I will say the one thing that we really emphasized during COVID was ROI. And so when we were out talking to advertisers during the pandemic, it was really about, and anytime we bring in new advertisers, we're always focusing on ROI. So if there's anything that the pandemic did, it put a really strong focus on return on investment. Not that it hadn't been there before, but there was a heightened awareness of ROI, audiences and outcomes, and everything that we learned during the pandemic, which in and of itself, was its own recession. If there are any economic headwinds, we're really prepared for it. We're prepared for it from the standpoint that we are focused more than ever on ROI, audiences and outcomes. The industry is continuing to digitize. Programmatic is growing. The number of formats are growing as well. And I do believe that advertisers have taken notice, and consumers definitely have taken notice of out of home. We've seen statistics that, consumers are 45% more aware of out of home signs coming out of the pandemic, because if you think about it, when you left the home, it was a little bit of a mission, and billboards were the guides out of home that told us where to go and what to do during the pandemic. And I think people really took notice, and we've seen such a strong rebound in the industry that we believe that we're still bullish, even if there are headwinds.
That makes sense. And as I mentioned at the outset, we're definitely seeing some upside in 2023 for this whole part of the media space, out of home, both the traditional and the digital. Well, Jim, thank you so much for being with us here today, sharing your insights. Yeah, definitely. It's been a while. It's good to reconnect. Thank you also to our listeners. Please, would like your feedback. Send us ideas for people you'd like us to speak with, or ideas you'd like us to cover, to bring to you. Send us an email at podcast@bia.com. And any other comments you have, we'd love to get feedback. See you next time for BIA's Leading Local Insights podcast. On behalf of Jim, thank you again. My colleagues at BIA, and especially our audiences, thank you all for being part of our community. Until next time, I'm Rick Ducey, Managing Director at BIA Advisory Services. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.